Good evening, my fellow Americans. I have to come to you this evening and deliver a very, very important message for all of you. As you know, my wonderful, incredible friend, Matt Gaetz, he's in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. But as you know, in the great state of Florida, we're able to get away with everything here. So nothing's going to happen to him. Don't listen to the news. It's totally fake. It's totally terrible. Remember, I'm able to get away with everything, and so will my little choir boy, Matt Gaetz. He's not going anywhere because he's still making America great again. And instead of breaking the law in the state of Florida with that very young, beautiful, incredible woman, very firm, very great, tremendous, he decided to take her across state lines into a state where it was totally, incredibly legal. No trouble, didn't break the law. And this idea that he was going across state lines and breaking laws, he totally didn't do that. She went willingly. This idea that she did not want to go with him, have you seen Matt? He's a tremendous person, a really great guy, and he's totally making America great again. And for that alone, every woman who is available and even not available should make themselves available for a wonderful guy like that. But of course, the Democrats, the fake news media, and everybody in between wants to get rid of wonderful Matt. But they're not going to get rid of him because I'm going to make sure that he stays in Florida and is never leaving again. Look at me. I'm never leaving Florida, and I'm fine. I'm totally fine, and I'm running the real White House out of Mar-a-Lago. They come and meet with me all the time, and they say, Don Trump. They're calling me Don Trump now. Can you believe it? It really works. They come in, they kiss the ring, they tell me what a great guy I am, and they ask for a favor. And I deliver those favors, as long as one comes back to me. So the favor that they ask me now, they say, Don, what could you do for me now? And I say, well, what do you need? And when you say, I need you to protect me from the FBI because I've been having sex with underage girls, I tell them, don't worry about it. I've done it tons of times. And every time I make sure that I don't know what you're putting in front of me right now. I can't even read it. I totally can't read that sign. I totally can't read that sign. It's a totally terrible sign. But of course, I have to wonder, are we ever going to be allowed to get away with what we've tried to get away with for so very long? I don't know. But Matt knows that anytime you try to get extorted, they try to get $25 million from him. That's a lot of money. It's a tremendous amount of money. And believe me, they're not going to get a dime. I've already told him, you don't talk to the FBI. You don't talk to the CIA. You come and talk to me, Don Trump, and I'll make everything better. So I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. He's the one who's going to take the rap for me up in New York. But he's not going to go to jail. He's going to get a slap on the wrist, and that's it. And it'll totally be over with. Done. No worries. No problems. We as a people have to understand that there are different rules for different people. There's different rules for me, different rules for Matt, and different rules for you. And they're not the same. A regular person breaks the law, they go to jail. A person like me or Matt breaks the law, we go on TV and tell everybody how our side's better than the other side. Did you notice? Really, really incredible story. Did you notice? Everybody who's a Democrat wants to get rid of wonderful Matt, but they don't want to get rid of Cuomo. And he is a really, really terrible person. He has been touching women on camera where they can catch you doing it. You're never supposed to do it in front of the camera. You're supposed to do it when nobody's looking. If you do it when no one's looking, you can't get in trouble. There's no way to prove it. How could you prove it when you have lawyers like the ones I've got or the one Matt's got? That terrible story that's happening up in Minnesota, I feel really bad for that wonderful police officer, Derek Chauvin, but unfortunately, he need that guy on the neck on camera. Not going to get away with it. Can't get away with it if it's on camera. There is no video evidence that Gaetz did anything wrong. But there's tons of video evidence that Cuomo did something wrong. Lots and lots of incredible evidence. And they're denying that it happened. You can't deny that it happened. It totally happened, and now he's in a lot of trouble. But they're not going to kick him out, and we're not going to let Matt kicked out. As far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to make a deal. That's what Don does. We make deals here, and the art of the deal says, if you want Matt Gaetz, we're getting Governor Cuomo. I think it's a fair trade. What do you think? We're all about trade here. We make wonderful trades. I always win those trades, of course. So I think it's a really great trade. What do you people think? I'd love to hear what you have to say. I think the trade is fair. Matt Gaetz, sorry, Matt, for Governor Cuomo. We really, really, really don't like Governor Cuomo. He's a really terrible person, and he has killed lots and lots of innocent people who didn't even vote for me. Imagine what would have happened if they voted for me. They wouldn't have had to worry about anything. But instead, they're not here anymore because they weren't about making America great again. So we have to continue to make America great by getting rid of Governor Cuomo. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get rid of my friend, Matt Gaetz. Sorry, Matt. Business is business. And we got to make the art of the deal happen. And we're going to make it happen. So with that said, I'm glad that you're all here for this wonderful show this evening. Lots of great guests, lots of great stories. I feel terrible for Matt, but hey, guys got to go when a guy's got to go. So with that said, thank you for touching base, saying hello. Remember, I'm still the real president.
Share screen.
I got to share screen.
Share screen.
I'm sharing screen. And so I'm going to learn how to do this. I am totally, incredibly going to learn how to do. Oh, stop screen. It says stop screen. Do I stop screen?
No, just add the other one.
Oh, add the other one. Add to the screen.
Now go to the one where it's all that.
That?
Go there.
There. Hit that?
Yes. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Oh my God. I wonder how we started out with. We're down to 13.
I don't know. But
That was long.
That was long.
It
but
was
I
too
kinda had to let
long.
it go.
You were.
It's like fun.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Generational change in the house. We're rocking the shirts.
I've altered mine.
I think it's a good color combination. I think it really
I'm
works.
telling you, it's good.
Yes.
Hi all, welcome to Thursday night live stream.
Oh my Lord.
We have a lot of things.
You know, we're also going to experiment with the idea of an opening monologue, which is what I just did. But Jen,
Was that you?
think, yes, I do think it's very appropriate because we put out, you know, a couple of social media posts recently
Yes.
in regards to what is the proper way forward with the COVID vaccine. We both agree 100% that everybody who is eligible to get the vaccine should get the vaccine. However,
if they want it. I have this concern for our civil liberties. And this is something that a lot of people, when induced by fear, are willing to forego their civil liberties, and people stop thinking with science and reason. And right now, we're in a country that's creating policy based on fear and profit. And so I think that to be suspicious of that and suspect of that is healthy. I think that we've lost critical reasoning skills. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm a pro-science person, which means that I inevitably will support vaccines that are scientifically make sense to me to do. I support science. My kids were vaccinated, but I never get a flu shot, and my kids did once and it didn't do anything, and I don't want to get a flu shot. And I am not comparing COVID to the flu. What I am saying, though, is the way the vaccinations are going to be working is very similar. So while COVID is significantly worse than the flu, I have had it, I think twice, definitely once. And it is not the flu. But the way the vaccine works is that it's going to need to be done like annually, like a flu shot. So when I'm comparing them, I'm comparing efficacy of how the vaccine works, not the severity of the illness. I have lost friends from COVID. I understand it's very serious, but the vaccine is similar in that it does not create, from my understanding, sterility immunization, meaning that if you're immunized, it makes you catching it much less severe and your symptoms much less, but it doesn't stop you from transmitting it. So why would my being vaccinated be anyone else's business? That's what I'm putting out there. I think there are serious civil liberty issues. If they showed me that this has sterility immunity, meaning that me getting it has an effect on other people, then I have no problem doing that. That's like your smallpox, your polio, like there's certain things that have shown to have sterility immunity. There are too many variants of coronavirus, just like the flu. Again, not comparing severity, but I have not been shown that this is based in sound reason. Plus, if it's something that needs to be repeated, so how do we all get on the same schedule? So once it starts to wear off, because the efficacy fades, that's why you have to get them regularly. Plus the strains change. So that's going to happen. And so if everyone has to get it regularly, but we get it at different times, are we equally as immune? And if it doesn't create, like, I don't understand how my vaccination is anyone else's business. Least of all, big business, big pharma, big government, big anything. And I just want people to consider civil liberties and not fear for just a few minutes. And that's it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
and I think it's important.
And I'll get the vaccine.
And that's your prerogative to do so.
And again, but this idea that we need basically like a stamp of some kind, I just think it's, again,
scary.
I revert back to, for those who can remember, I can remember a couple of things very distinctly when 9/11 happened. I can remember the mass hysteria about going to war. We have to hit them back. We got to get them. How are we going to get them? This is a war like any other war we've ever faced. So what do we do? And of course, this led to...
We invade Iraq.
That's not what I was going to say. This is about giving up our civil liberties, and the idea that you were willing, and able to give up your right to habeas corpus shows you how the government can get away with whatever it wants to get away with at will, as it needs to. And that's not to say that COVID isn't dangerous, but if you think that, remember.
But it's a personal choice. If my getting vaccinated doesn't prevent me from transmitting it to others.
Yes,
and
Steve.
What it does is keeps me from having, a more severe reaction or whatever, then it's not your business. It just isn't. And I think it's a very slippery slope. And after 9/11, I, like the dork that I am, read the Patriot Act. Now, most people didn't read the Patriot Act. Most people in Congress didn't read the Patriot Act. But that I was against it then. I'm against it now. And it was created for the same sort of fear-based reasons and this sort of manufactured consent. And when you and I'm not saying COVID isn't real. Like I said, I have lost friends. I think it is very real. I think people have died by 600,000 people in this country. A lot of that based on mismanagement. And I just scientifically don't see why basically forcing vaccinations for something that doesn't create sterility immunity is the thing that, and quite honestly, forcing vaccinations at all is really scary to me.
Yeah.
And very authoritarian. And it's just, it freaks me out. So that's the thing. So if people want to say I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
So the question becomes then, if you get a vaccine, then you should be protected from the virus.
Well, right? That's the other thing. So if you get a vaccine and you're protected, then why do you care what I do? And, here's the thing. When people start saying, well, then you're taking up resources and you're this and you're that, you know what? If the amount of people that had their panties in a bunch over this would get out and fight for Medicare for all and universal health care, then we wouldn't be in this problem in the first place. So I don't think it's because people are so concerned with our overall health and well-being. How many of the boomer people that have all gotten vaccinated, right? How many of them are really caring about our overall health and well-being? I don't know what percentage of them support universal health care
and well-being.
Exactly.
And again, this is
a profit situation.
It is a profit situation. And of course, we only know of one particular one so far. The one that's been put up by, there's three right now. There's Johnson & Johnson, there's Moderna, and I forget the third one.
This is ridiculous.
But I can tell you that Johnson & Johnson is getting a $4 billion subsidy from the U.S. government for this. They're not paying anything, and they're still getting our tax dollars, whether you like it or not. And so I am not going to mention who the family member is, but I had a conversation with somebody that I'm close to this afternoon, and they effectively were complaining about how a relative had to go into rehab for mental illness, and basically complaining to me about how their insurance is not covering their rehab past 1 week. And this is a person, mind you, who is a total neolib, will not fight for Medicare for all. It's all about me. It's all about what I want. It's about what I need. It's no different than a conservative nutcase who thinks that being gay is a choice. Because when it lands on your doorstep, then you give a damn. So now that they realize firsthand that they are getting financially screwed by the system because they're not supporting the healthcare system that would prevent price gouging for you to seek mental help, now all of a sudden they get it. And even then they don't get it because they're not going to fight the way that they should. So it's understandable when people are not exactly gung-ho about what needs to be done here. Again, if you feel that it's necessary to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Everyone who is able to get it should get it.
You know what? I just realized I had this epiphany. I'm sorry, but I'll forget if you don't let me say it. Because if everybody would stop judge other people with this and just mind their business, it would be infinitely better.
Correct.
Like they just can't let it alone.
And that's the whole point, is that if you are able to get vaccinated and you want to get vaccinated and that is what is going to keep you safe, then do it. You're not going to force tens of millions, maybe as much as 100 million.
You think they're shaming us? Like voter shaming. It's like voter shaming. They're going to vaccine. They're going to vaccine me.
Listen, I believe, and this is what I believe, especially when you're indoors, everybody should wear a mask.
Absolutely.
Everybody should wear a mask. And not just because of COVID, but because that is the easiest way to prevent viral infection for other people. In other places in the world, especially in Asian countries, I know in China it's very big, they wear masks.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
I think to some degree it depends also on the population of where you live. Like in urban places and in big cities, you know, places like Tokyo or New York, I get that because you're constantly like, it's constant. But like, and when and if that becomes the case, you will find me in a very rural place without a mask being very happy because I get what you're saying. And I am not willing to let, and I'm not saying I don't do it now and out of respect, because I do. Absolutely. I will always do it as long as but I would just choose to live rural and live on and just not have that. So it's just, I don't enjoy it at all.
No, and I don't enjoy it either. And unfortunately, we're in one of those unfortunate situations right now where, panic gets people to do things. And the other part of my story that I wanted to share before we bring on our guest, Josh Hamilton, when I was a sophomore in college, it was the spring of 2003, and it was when we were on the precipice of going into Iraq. And I can remember being in what was probably my favorite course that I took at Rutgers, which was government and business. And I can remember there being a debate in class about whether or not we should be going into Iraq. And I remember one specific girl in the class who sat in the front and made a point to say, we have to go into Iraq to give them their freedom. And I'm just thinking this, and it's always interesting because people like that are the last person on earth that would ever put on a uniform, stand on a front line and die for this country. It's always people like that who would never lift a finger to defend us, who are the first ones to say, we got to go to war. The fact that I'm sitting there and I'm 19 and I'm listening to this as a kid thinking, this isn't right. It's not right. I can tell that this is a scam. Like, how do you not see this?
I was a lot older than 19.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
But
the idea that they couldn't see straight, that this is wrong, that we are going to war. Not only are we going to war, but we're willing to give up our constitutional rights in the process. It's mind-blowing to me. It really is. And this is kind of why we can't have nice things, because we can't come to the consensus that our government doesn't work for us. They don't. Even today, $2 trillion over a decade for a stimulus package for infrastructure is peanuts. And not only that, but it's a corporate giveaway many times over. And it doesn't even begin to address a lot of the issues that exist. And apparently, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, if we are to bring our infrastructure up to code, that alone would cost $4 trillion. So the fact that they're cutting it in half, and that hasn't even gone through committees yet. I mean,
you're way off. I'm not sure where you even started because you were talking about 9/11, and so
I'm simply bringing it to the point where our government is going to tell us one thing, but we always should take it with a grain of salt.
Right. And I
Always.
believe, here's the thing. If we lived in a country where we had universal health care and that wasn't a for-profit industry, I would be less suspect. I would. But there is a huge profit motive. And I am sorry that I still maintain critical reason skills. Like that does not make me an it doesn't make me an anti anything. I just like to use my brain.
Yep.
And I like to think, and to me, it's a very Occam's razor thing. Like the most obvious thing is the correct thing. What is more likely? That our government cares about our health and well-being, or that their friends are going to make a lot of money off of it? Now, let's everybody think and use empirical evidence and think, what is the more likely answer? So why is it that people are so fearful and so scared that they just dispose of reason, and it drives me nuts. And then if you dare to do that, then all the like scared people like come at you like it's like, I'm not threatening you. I'm just wanting to discuss this. And I'm wanting to understand, people just eat what they're given and don't even question. And it's just, and then they're like, oh, well, the CDC. I'm like, oh, because they're not in the whole banking with big pharma.
And what I mean,
come on.
And what I would say is that in regards to the
CDC.
vaccine, like I said, I do intend to take it, but I'm not going to take it right away. I want to see if there's any type of side effects, if there's, other problems that develop. Remember, a lot of people that have been getting the vaccine, especially on the second injection, they've been getting essentially dead on.
And all those people say, oh, it's just so not a big deal. And it isn't. That isn't in and of itself. But then do we know that? I don't look. I have a lot of issues, and I am so sick of everybody fear mongering and shaming and this. Labeling people. Like, I am so sick and tired of it. It's ridiculous. I'm a grown ass woman. I've been taking care of myself for almost 50 years, and I've done pretty well. And I would like to get back to where we can all sort of think and not just eat whatever is fed us from propaganda and corporate TV. That's what I want.
I think
we don't have that.
And so with that said,
there's my rant.
And with that said, a very interesting topic comes up because, again, as I was alluding to very briefly, as we're about to bring in Josh, modern monetary theory is a real thing because we're being told not to talk about it. We're being told that the idea that the government is a government that issues its own currency has the ability to do, modern monetary theory, which is essentially pay for programs that will eventually come back in terms of profit.
I think we've had at least two. I know we've had Scott Santons was on talking about that.
Yes.
And Fidel
Kebab, and of course Steve Grumbine.
Oh, yeah, that was the most recent.
And so
three guests. We've had three. So people check them out. There are
Correct.
3 videos on MMT. But
now we're going to be able to talk to somebody from the motherland, as we like to say.
Which makes me feel a little bad because it's like the middle of the night, which I thought about, but then I'm like, maybe he's just used to that. I don't know. And here's the thing is that for people like that, I'd be willing to do it earlier.
That is very true, but this is a very important conversation.
Anyway, so this is what we're talking about.
Yes,
okay.
I think it's a very important conversation to have because this is somebody who actually lives in a country that was under the euro and is now back to the pound. And that makes all the difference in the world. That is the one caveat within the confines of Brexit.
Head. I don't think so.
No? Okay,
no,
so we're going to find out
that's not how it's all working. He's going to tell us. But here's the thing. What Brexit, seriously, you're taking this in the whole wrong direction.
Fine.
You are. So this book that Josh wrote is Brexit, and it has to do with this civil war of the establishment and really how dark money and the powers that be. And I really see so many parallels. This is definitely happening worldwide. We're seeing this very capitalistic. It's almost like their death throes and last grasps is the sort of the proletariat is starting to gain power, and they're really just sticking it to us.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how it relates
Well,
to
that's
here.
also, and that's also a big reason why we have the big tech
Yes.
censorship.
So here
without
is
further ado-
Josh.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
I think your audio.
No, I think it's us. Say something.
Try it again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine. It's our
Okay.
speakers are down. Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
All
As
right,
long as
so-
you can hear me.
Thank you at 1:30 in the morning for toughing it out with us. It's very much appreciated. But, people in San Francisco like to wake up at, the middle of the night in order to stay on New York time. So, we're very grateful for that, Josh. So please introduce yourself to our audience.
That's all right. I'm a night owl, and I'm always like pumped to talk about social media destroying the world. So the time doesn't really matter. But yeah, hi. I'm Josh Hamilton, and yeah, I'm here to talk about my book, Brexit: The Establishment Civil War, which I basically see as a case study in how social media is destroying our democracy and can be exploited by very powerful people with plenty of money to throw at it to divide us and exploit that. And also, we are out of the EU, not the euro. We were never in the euro.
See,
Okay.
that's the thing. I knew that was
My
wrong.
apologies. For some reason, I thought that was a contentious,
It
point of
was.
emphasis.
It was, but
It was. There was a huge fight
Yeah.
about the euro, about whether the UK was going to ditch the pound, but we stuck with it. The more contentious is your flag behind you. Being from Northern Ireland, like you
Is that
had like
horrible?
no,
I'm
you had
so
like
sorry.
You got to give
No,
her
no,
credit.
no.
Oh my God, is it wrong? Is it wrong?
No. It's just because like 50% of Northern Ireland considers that to be our flag, and 50% of us consider the Irish flag to be our flag. So you took like a stab at it. You, for me, that's my flag, because that's like the United Kingdom flag.
Oh my
but,
God,
like,
now that I know that, I will never do that again, because I could get it wrong. I only did that because it sort of matched there was something where I looked you up or something that was UK, and I guess I saw it with that, and then okay, I'm never doing that again. But thank you for correcting me.
No, it's all right. Like, it's not even a craze. It's just funny that you picked that. Like, if
Well,
I was,
it was on our flyer for tonight, because when I put Brexit, and that was the other thing, is on our flyer, it was with the word Brexit. So I think it just made sense for people, and so because it was on our flyer, I put it there.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm not offended in any way. Even if it wasn't, like, I didn't consider it to be my flag, I wouldn't be offended, because it is and the thing about the Irish flag is some people don't see it as the flag for Northern Ireland, even though it's meant to be for the whole of Ireland. Like, it was literally designed for like the Protestants or like Unionists, who are the orange, and then the green is like the nationalists and like the Catholic part of Ireland, and white is for peace. So it's meant to be a whole flag for the whole of the island.
Well,
but,
I was honestly just thinking about the concept of Brexit, and to me, people think Brexit is BR for Britain, exit. So I think like that was sort of my
No, you got
it
that
wasn't
one
so
right.
much to you personally. I do know that you live in Northern Ireland. I think that's awesome, and I can definitely tell the difference between your accent and that of somebody that is from like London.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's definitely. Well,
Yeah,
of
the
course,
best one is that
Jen's
people
going
always
to kill
say
me
we
if
have
I
like
even. Jen's going to kill me if I even try to talk with an Irish
Do it.
accent.
Don't
No.
do it.
Well, I found out recently that
It's not good.
that my grandmother is actually from Ireland.
That
so.
and still, you should never talk like.
Okay, well,
Irish
look
person.
again. I'm eventually I'll find out the origins and the truth, and immerse myself in the culture
All
and
right.
learn how to talk it.
So will you explain, because obviously, people know what the idea is of Brexit, separating from the EU. But can you explain like the sides of the argument, like in terms of who is fighting for what? Like, I mean, we know that obviously that is definitely the right-wing position. And can you explain why, like what the background is of who's fighting for Brexit?
So I kind of divide it into like 4 categories. Essentially, I see like the 2 sides of the argument that was had between like the people, and the 2 sides of the argument that was had between the establishment. It's the establishment arguments are the ones that are going to win out, hence the title of the book, The Establishment Civil War. But basically, the argument for the establishment was that Europe was holding Britain back because we were, getting wound up in all of this red tape because the EU issues a lot of declarations on different like rules and laws that we're meant to have, and over the past 40 years their kind of scope has expanded and expanded and expanded into loads of different areas that were never envisioned initially. And the argument was that Britain could be, more prosperous and free outside of those regulations. It was a very like neoliberal deregulatory argument. And then there was also
nationalistic, very nationalistic.
Yeah, they really played on the sort of, Britain can be great again. Like it was such a mirror of the Make America Great Again thing. And
they were call that neoliberal, which is so interesting. And people need to understand that in this country. Like to you, that's neoliberal. To us, that's conservative. That's how far right we are. So people need to be aware of that. Like that would not be something that you would think a neoliberal would say here. Conservative.
I mean, like for me, neoliberalism isn't exactly like a left or right ideology. It's one that's been subsumed by like basically the entire like ruling class of both Britain and America, in my view, anyway. And it's basically defined by like three things. It's deregulation, it's cutbacks of public services, and it's privatization of industry and sell-off of public assets. And that's what happens every single time we see someone arguing for like free trade or, cutting the red tape to like free up the economy. And it happened over the past 40 or 50 years throughout the world. Naomi Klein's The Shock Doctrine is a fantastic exploration of it. And she really lays out exactly how it's always like every single like encroachment of neoliberalism is preceded by a crisis, like a shock, hence the shock doctrine. And I basically think that Brexit is going to be the shock that will give us this next wave of neoliberalism. And I feel that around the world, COVID is also going to be exploited for the very same reason. And it concerns me a little bit, and it's definitely something we got to watch out for, because it's going to be used to give power and money to people who probably have way too much of it already.
So you heard what I was saying before you came on. You were listening for a while. Like I got a lot of crap today from people, and all I'm doing is just postulating, just saying like, let's talk about this. Let's reason this. Let's, and it's like vitriolic. You don't care about other people. You're not going to, it's not about you. It's about and I'm like, yeah. And that's what people were saying. And we were talking about 9/11 when we gave up our 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights and our Patriot Act. And people were so willing to do that. And nobody was going to think that through. And we never got those back, by the way. So, once you give up your rights, you don't get them back, so it's just, but yet, yes, I'm still like just dealing with this just from, thinking about the vaccine issue.
And I mean, like, this is one of the things that like I raise in my book and is still really prescient now. Fortunately for me, because it means I get to talk about it, but unfortunately for society that we haven't dealt with it, is that like social media seems to just amplify any division that exists. It seems to, whether maliciously or not, it just seems to like pour petrol on like hot button issues and cause these huge fires, and it seems to make people crazy. And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day between Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein, who have been controversial for their own reasons, but like Jordan Peterson put it brilliantly, and I think it actually explains a lot of madness that's going on. He was talking about how much we've been like immersed in our digital communities this year.
Yes.
And how much it's ruined us. So like the quote is, he says, "A phenomenon that has recently emerged from the increase in online community interactions is a seeming abundance of acute paranoia. One the causes may lie in the ability to hyper-select the communities themselves. And at your weakest point psychologically, you choose the least demanding compatriots and see your craziest ideas are going to be less likely to be challenged." And I think that like speaks so beautifully to where we've ended up. Like people do not want to listen to each other, and they will
No.
literally just sit around and discuss things with the people that are going to agree with them. And it's like echo chambers and filter bubbles on steroids, and it's getting worse and worse and worse because anyone with a dissenting voice seems to just be getting like wiped out of the conversation. People like even like Stephen Crowder. I know he's not exactly on the same side of the political conversation as you guys, but
Not a fan at all.
but he is always well sourced, and you can disagree with it, what he takes from it, but he provides sources for everything he talks about, and he's been like temporarily suspended from YouTube. And that's
well,
really,
I mean,
really
I have been very clear from the beginning that I support. I am a First Amendment absolutist when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I was against Alex Jones being deplatformed, and he's a buffoon. So I don't really care. Yeah, no. I'm not for Trump being deplatformed, quite honestly. So, you know, I take that very seriously. It is look, when people act out of fear, it freaks me out.
And again,
like I get scared when people are acting out of fear because we're losing reason.
And Bernie came out in defense of Trump the other day, and people literally lost their minds.
They can't handle it. They
and
can't
it's
handle
like,
it.
I think he's a terrible person. And I
Stop.
really don't want him to be, you know, saying the things that he says, but I really don't think censorship is the answer.
Censorship is never the answer. Well,
It's
can
true.
you explain how, and which wouldn't necessarily be a horrible thing with social media if there wasn't this corporate sinister overlords that oversee it. So if it were really like, let's say, just free broadband, social and there was nobody like in charge of it, then it wouldn't be as problematic. I think it would have other issues, but we're seeing such a dominance, and that's what your book is about. I'd love for you to talk about how that. Okay, by the way, it's not really Jimmy Dore. Okay,
yeah, I was wondering. I was like, amazing Jimmy Dore, and then
no,
I was like,
it's not Jimmy Dore. It's somebody. We think it's one of our trolls, Declan.
Josh, if you can,
I was in the middle of asking a question.
I apologize.
Explain how that ownership of the media is what connected it to Brexit and how that worked.
Well, the way that, with the problem with the media is that, and the problem with social media as well is that, as I mentioned before, they just tend to enjoy causing chaos. And I think the reason that social media has caused so much chaos in both Britain and America is because they were the most divided already. Whether you can blame the media over the last 40 years for that, I definitely think they've got a part to play. But the way it was exploited is just phenomenally terrifying. So you guys are probably familiar with the company Cambridge Analytica, and I'm not going to go.
Of course we are.
And I'm not going to go to town on them specifically because they're just one company trying to exploit this. This is not something that it's like exclusive to them, but the tactics they used are phenomenally destructive for any kind of like reasonable democracy to have in there, where they can just like dump dark ads on social media about anything they want with zero oversight, zero regulation. And this is not me calling for like government control of what people are allowed to say. We have laws for every other type of advertising ever. Like we have the watershed. I know in America you have like TV political ads. In Britain, we don't even have them because we decided that like politics belongs on the doorstep. It's meant to be about how many people you can talk to and say, hey, come on, let's go knock on doors, or how many people you can get to appear at your rallies, and how many people you can convince your ideas are good. You shouldn't be able to like campaign from behind ironically a laptop or sitting here, but you shouldn't be able to like campaign sitting with a big pile of cash to spend on ads. You should be basing that on the ideas that you can sell to people and convince them to go out and campaign for you. And it's so terrifying that we just sort of allow this. And I think the reason that we've done nothing about it is because, as is very often the case, the media stand to benefit from it because, the more culture war, the more like outrage, the more clicks they get. And the politicians stand to benefit from it because why on earth would they want to regulate something that they can exploit? It's just like the same old tired story where it's something that's going to harm the general public, but will continue to allow the people who are currently in power to stay there and be unchallenged, and the sort of slow creep of censorship is terrifying to me, because it, like, I got really worried about echo chambers while I was writing my book, about people only hearing their side of the argument, and the only time then they would hear the other side would be someone like parodying what they think about something. And now with people being like banned, it's going to turn places like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube into one giant echo chamber. And if you thought things were bad when we were all on the same platform, like, where do you see how crazy they get when we don't even have access to what the other side are saying of any issue? It's going to get real wild.
Yeah, it's very scary to me. I think that just the whole corporate ownership of it and able to control what we can and can't hear. We've always had significantly worse issues in this country. Recently, it was brought to my attention that there were a bunch of people in the UK, I guess, that had watched Oprah's interview with Meghan and Harry, and they were taken back by how many pharmaceutical ads that were run during that interview. And we're so brainwashed in this country by propaganda and corporatism and stuff like that, that people have literally been herded into their little groups. And what's even more scary than that is that, as somebody who is in the political world, whenever I have done anything to reach out to different people, other-minded people, the other political party, any other demographic, I get nothing but crap from the people that are the Democrat, that are the left, or they're supposed to be our left, which is your right, but our left. But they can't handle it. You're not even allowed to give a platform. I got crap for going on Tim Pool's show. I got crap for having Vosh come on my show. I get crap. Like, you're not allowed to mingle with people that have ever said anything that has been remotely objectionable to anybody. And that's, we're having no discourse at all. And it's very scary. I mean, I agree. This is something that is very concerning to me. As
somebody who lives in the UK, what can you share with people stateside that, the Tories and others were doing to basically, smear Jeremy Corbyn in whatever capacity they needed to ensure that there wasn't a true progressive uprising that could have frankly spilled over, I think, all throughout the UK and throughout Europe and beyond. I am curious from your perspective. Obviously they did quite a job of painting him as an anti-Semite, among other things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still baffled at how they managed to paint the probably the most prominent anti-racism campaigner in the last 40 years in the UK as anti-Semitic. I'm still baffled at that, if I'm honest. But
it's like Cornel West here.
Yeah,
because they speak out against the state of Israel. That's all it is. And then once you do that, that's it. That's it. So anyway, sorry.
The thing with Corbyn was more based in the way they dealt with accusations of anti-Semitism within the party, and then they really made a hash of it. But I never saw it as Jeremy Corbyn being anti-Semitic, and they just hammered it in the media endlessly. Yeah. But he was just vilified from every angle. We have a very right-wing print media in Britain, and they still largely control the narrative. And I know that a lot of people are kind of talking about the death of mainstream media and how it's losing influence and losing clout, but they still drive the news cycle, essentially. If someone goes on CNN in America and says something stupid, or if someone goes on the BBC in Britain and they say something outrageous, that's it. That's all we're talking about. And that they still have that control of it. But Jeremy Corbyn was a really interesting issue. He got hammered for the idea that we could spend some money on infrastructure, like you guys were talking about before I came on there, that we could print some money to benefit the country and invest in hospitals, invest in infrastructure upgrades, electrifying public transport, just things that would improve the country a little bit, and pump some money into like local builders and construction work and things that would benefit the country. And then they said no, you're a communist, you're going to crash the economy. And then I wrote a piece about in April, and I was like, right, okay, so modern monetary theory, you are going to get your go now. You get to see like how if this theory is rubbish or not, if this was just like all academic speculation, or if it was real. And we've kind of shown that even when it's not under the ideal conditions, because ideally in modern monetary theory, you'd want to print that money and immediately pump it into the economy, into like investing in infrastructure and like projects that are going to grow the economy. Instead, we've just been printing money and giving it to people to keep the country going while we deal with the pandemic. And yet all hell hasn't broken loose yet. There's probably going to be some inflation. Perhaps we can deal with that. I don't know. But, it hasn't been this mad, crazy, like just collapse of Western civilization that people printed it as. In the same way they painted like Bernie's proposals for like Medicare for all,
exactly.
or any kind of investment in, the country, and not like Halliburton. And it's stunning to watch it happen, but I almost think we're reaching this point where if they go too hard, they don't quite. It doesn't ring true, and people sort of start to turn against it. And I think we're slowly getting to that point where people are waking up to the fact where when the entire media says something in unison, people go, "Hang on, why are you all agreeing on this all of a sudden?"
I do think that messaging is very important, but the one thing we've been talking about lately is, big tech censorship is able to succeed because, unfortunately, the thing that independent content creators still haven't learned or understood is that as much as Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, they all have their way of doing business. But the second a pro-worker message starts, working class message starts to take shape, they all unify and crush it with everything they have. The thing that the independent media circuit doesn't understand is that while we do have our differences, we better figure out a way to break bread and check our egos at the door, because if we don't, this is going to turn into a nightmare that people can't even see yet. It's only getting worse. But if you want to combat corporate messaging, people have to unify across the globe. And it's certainly possible. I think Jen's done a great job. Obviously, the Assange telethon pissed off quite a few people. But
I got new haters. I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
I know.
Do they come with that new hater smell?
No, of course. Well, we got tens of thousands of people that watched. We had a call to action about, basically bombarding the new Attorney General's office. In fact, it was actually working because one of the Senate switchboard operators got really pissed off and was like, "I can't take this anymore. Stop calling my office." It's like, well, you know what? I hate to say it, but that's how you get stuff done. It's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, we did. I think what you and I had talked about, I was either planning I talked to you right before we did our Assange telethon, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you see any of it? It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. I mean, like Julian Assange is just like the most perfect example, because he had they've invented these charges, and the British government has arguably circumvented like international law by going into the Ecuadorian embassy and just dragging him out, which is horrifying. But like aside from the kind of invented and then dropped charges, he's done nothing except print the truth, and people can't handle it. It's like the most cliched, it's like, you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. It's like,
I was just
actually can't handle the truth.
It was actually a really great Hillary meme back in 2016 of, "You want the truth, I deleted the truth."
Yeah,
and it's like,
but Assange, like, people don't understand. And what's amazing is how the media message over the past 10 years has been so manipulated and contorted. And seriously, if you say things enough, it becomes the truth. When you ask the general person their thoughts about Assange, they'll still think of him as like a rape, like he was charged with rape. They go back to that ridiculous, that bogus Swedish charge, which we know was bogus, was shown to be bogus. But that, of course, didn't get the coverage that the original charge got. So it's like, Julian Assange is a perfect example of how they're closing in and coming together to just basically kill somebody for telling the truth.
The problem is that in the United States, I don't know what it's like in the UK or throughout the rest of Europe. And like I said, conversations like this, I think, are absolutely important. Jen does have a number of friends in the UK. Actually, George Galloway follows her. I'd really like to get him on at some point. I think from the American perspective, our news cycle on, I wouldn't say digital, but at least on TV, it definitely has a very heavy neoliberal slant on audio, radio, and podcasts in general. Much, much more of a neoconservative slant. Although I will say, there is a very substantially large libertarian movement in the United States. They are extremely civil liberty driven. They are extremely anti-war driven. And a lot of them are and a lot of them are starting to come around on universal health care. And I do think that that's a very important topic because there are a lot of civil libertarians in the UK, but I'm willing to bet that probably not a single one of them would be willing to give up their universal health care. Can you please talk about that?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like one of the things I talk about in my book. So I mentioned that I think that the sort of shock of COVID and Brexit combined will usher in this new wave of this next wave of neoliberalism. And honestly, our universal healthcare is something that is going to be up for grabs. Like there's a lot of us in the UK that are very concerned about this. There's been a number of like attempts to sort of put it into law that post Brexit we wouldn't try and like privatize the NHS, which is our national health service. But it's to actually for them to get away with it will be very difficult. But they're doing a damn good job. They're just sort of like slicing off a little tiny bit at a time and doing it by stealth. And all of a sudden one day we're going to turn around to be like, oh, where'd our NHS go? But generally the British public just, we think that like our universal healthcare is fantastic. And I have to agree. And for me, I don't I can see how I might be able to convince a libertarian that it's a good thing because it provides freedom. If you don't have to worry about like your healthcare costs for anything, you can just go start a business. You can you try anything you want. You can change jobs. You can take some time off and work out what you're going to do next. You can do whatever you want and not have to worry about it. It's like the most freeing thing in the world. And it's I expressed this to a couple of people that I know in Albany while I was staying with them once, and they looked horrified. They were like, "What do you mean? Isn't that communism?" And I was like, "No."
Well, and that right there, Josh, is also a testament to our education system.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole other problem. But yeah, I mean, we have a very skewed vision, but we're very spoon-fed particular information. I mean, that's a big part of it. And it starts when we start school and it doesn't ever stop. And now it just feeds itself. But so I just saw somebody post something about, will you put that back up?
Yes.
Because that was interesting. And I want to just see
from Anna Grace, who I do believe is in the UK.
Here. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I am not like a huge EU fan. If someone thinks I'm like if someone thinks I'm like super pro EU and they're listening, that's not the case.
So how do you fall on Brexit?
Well,
how does that work?
And if I could piggyback on that, I think this is a great opportunity for the naivety in the United States for people to understand what actually happened in Greece, because a lot of people really don't know or understand what happened there.
I mean, Greece got really, really screwed over by the EU in terms of like they just came in and they were like, okay, so we're going to give you some money, but then we're going to be in charge of your country, which is a trend that is way more prevalent than people would maybe realize. It's a trend that Naomi Klein actually writes about in the Shock Doctrine fantastically, and she just expresses like the way that the World Bank or the European Central Bank will just go into countries and say, okay, so we're gonna, help you get started. Say, there was like a lot of investment offered to post-Soviet states. And they went, okay, so we're gonna help you. but you're gonna, you're gonna implement these like extreme, like free market, laissez-faire policies, or you're not gonna get the money. And they kind of just bullied Greece into like implementing horrendous levels of austerity. But the EU, as I was saying, is a body that it's a lot of good, but it's got a lot of really bad things about it as well, and it's huge. And the disparity between the countries that are in it is the thing that I've come to see as the biggest issue, because you can't take, in my mind at least anyway, countries like Holland or Germany with like really affluent, like well-developed nations, and make laws for them that are like encompass the almost the entire economy, the entire legal system, and you can't put them in the same framework as somewhere like Bulgaria or Croatia or any of these countries that joined the EU in the last sort of 15 or 20 years, that just they weren't in the same place economically as the rest of the EU. And it's really difficult to legislate across such a huge and disparate area. Like the United States is huge, but like there's a lot more of like a homogenous culture. Like this is 27 countries they're trying to legislate for, and it's really difficult. And the EU is kind of, I've become like really irritated with the EU in the last year, just with the whole COVID thing, because the reason that we ended up having a referendum, basically, I think, or the reason that David Cameron, our prime minister at the time, wasn't able to offer more to the Eurosceptics in his party was because they said that the levels of immigration to Britain were too high, and they wanted to have some control of the border. You can debate as to what you consider too high to be, but there was something like 500,000 to 600,000 people arriving in Britain every year, I think, on average, in those couple of years leading up to the vote, which some people might say is too high. Some people would be like, that's great. We need these immigrants to help grow the economy, to take jobs that people aren't willing to take. Like there's plus and minuses to both of it. But David Cameron went and said, look, can we have like a pause on this, and can we just say, look, we know it's against your like fundamental like principles of the EU, but can we have some control of our border temporarily? And they said, no, that's completely contrary to freedom of movement. And then COVID hits, and all of a sudden the EU's like, oh, well, you could always just close your borders whenever you wanted. It was totally your decision as a sovereign nation. And I was like, you hypocrites. Like, you told us it wasn't possible under any circumstances because it was contrary to your fundamental freedoms. And we voted to leave the EU because you said it wasn't possible, partially. And all of a sudden we discover it is. It's driven me a bit insane. So the EU is a really complex body, and it is run by a lot of people who aren't elected. It's so far from the people who are voting on the European elections. The European election turnout is dismal, and people don't feel connected to it. And the reason that I think that we ended up voting to leave was this idea that we should be totally in charge of what happens in Britain. And I don't think that's an insane idea. I mean, I love a lot of the protections that the EU have put in place for workers, consumers, for the environment. But ultimately, it came down to, like, we wanted to have the final say in how we run our country. And to me, that didn't seem like an insane prospect. I am not sure how I would vote if I went back 5 years with this knowledge, because I voted to remain the first time. And I would maybe do it again because I'm terrified of the sort of fallout from it and the people who are currently in charge. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
So that sounds almost like how I felt when I voted for Joe Biden. Like, it wasn't like it's not necessarily the best choice. It was just a choice. But let me just, this will put it in perspective for me. So as somebody who's here, like a Bernie Sanders progressive, right? If I lived in the UK when that vote happened, would I have voted for or against?
That is like the $1 million question, really. Like Jeremy Corbyn is quite similar to Bernie Sanders on a lot of policy. And I was big fans of both of them. Actually, more so of Bernie. I feel like he's got more of a spine.
Then that's not good at all for Jeremy Corbyn.
No, I mean, he's I don't even, maybe a spine's not the way to put it, but he's just like more forceful. I feel like he talks with more passion. Corbyn's not exactly like a natural leader, I feel, in the way that Bernie is. Like Bernie gets up there and just like, says what he thinks most of the time.
So Jeremy Corbyn was not in favor of Brexit.
So he was even meeker.
No, you see, he was traditionally skeptical of the EU because it was kind of controlling of the ability to do state aid. In other words, to like subsidize like industries in Britain. So the EU doesn't like that at all. And there was a lot of left-wingers in the Labour Party, sort of traditional left-wingers, who were not fans of the European Union. And the Labour Party kind of had this weird split where all of the young people in the party were very pro-Europe, and then there was like a Eurosceptic side that was very sort of trying to, that I think ended up maybe voting for Brexit because they felt helpless, and they felt like it was for me it was almost like a cry for help, like a screw you to the establishment, because like a year before the Brexit vote we had an election. And there was 3 million people that voted in the Brexit vote that did not vote in that election. So that means 3 million people said that they felt that this was an important issue, but the previous election was just not on their radar. So the Jeremy Corbyn campaigned for Remain, but he was accused of doing it half-heartedly. And he basically had to hold the party together for 4 years until he was ousted as leader. Between the young students who had like come to the Labour Party in support of him, but then were aware that he didn't really like Europe, and he was sort of siding with the more traditional part of the party, like the real working class, like trade union side, who were not fans of the EU. And it really like split the party, and it really caused a lot of issues. And this is probably ultimately why he never came to power. Was because there was just it was that extra issue that people weren't sure about him, whereas if the elections that he was involved in could have been based on spending on infrastructure, making sure our health service is well funded, making sure that we're moving forward to transition to like a less carbon soaked economy, and clamping down on tax havens and making sure the wealthy don't, hide all their money offshore, and, trying to challenge the establishment. If that had been the sole focus of the campaign, I feel he would have won. And in 2017, when he came this close, the election was less about Brexit. When he then got trounced by Boris Johnson in 2019, it was far more about Brexit. Like Boris Johnson's whole thing, his slogan was "Get Brexit Done," which is, a fantastic pice of, articulate political messaging, but it really worked. And that's where he lost it, I think, was Europe actually caused him to not come to power in my mind, at least anyway.
Okay. So I've concluded that if I were living in the UK, I would be with Labour and I would support Brexit, but I would be very anti-nationalistic and anti-xenophobic and want to not have those things be. That's where I would be. Okay, so I'm good. I understand now. I understand. No, that's what I didn't understand. Where would I be?
Before we get to the China question, I want to ask you about.
Well, let's ask him this though.
Yes. Well, all right. You know what? Let's ask Dustin's question first, which is,
you could probably see that, right, Josh?
Do you have credit unions, and how does your local fiat currencies fare?
Fiat
currency. So we have the pound. So that's our currency is like the dollar. So we have total control of that. We have the Bank of England. So I completely forgot the name of the bank. It is 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. And so yeah, we have total control of it. So it's that was one of the huge things that happened in Britain. We had that debate over the euro like 15 years ago, where we decided whether we would want to be in the euro and part of the European like monetary project, or whether we wanted to be out of it. And I am so glad that even if it's for totally nationalistic reasons, we decided to keep it, because it means that we don't have this issue where we're having to go back from the euro into our own currency. Is really, really useful. And yet, we do have credit unions, but I'm not like particularly well educated on credit unions.
Right.
So
Yeah, guys, Josh
speak much
isn't,
to that.
he's not an economist or,
No, but
or
I
a
think-
banker.
no.
I mean, it's kind of,
But-
I was going to say, why not just ask him about like astrophysics? I'm sorry.
No, but I do think it's very important that we have this conversation, because I think, obviously we're big supporters of, outside the box type thinking when it comes to economics. And I do think that modern monetary theory and even UBI have a really important place in where we go forward in terms of economics, not just nationally, but globally. And I think that modern monetary theory is something that probably either gets talked about enough or not nearly enough in a country like the UK, because you have your own currency. So you have the ability to fund your programs as needed. What I do find very interesting is that you do have a plethora of programs that are funded, and you're not exactly a country that's suffering right now. You have universal health care, universal education. You pay close to a living wage. You have job opportunities. You're easily accessible because you have it's a high-speed rail. I mean, whatever you technically call it. I know
it's just
they have public
that's going way
transportation.
over
It's
budget.
the tube. It's the tube, but they have public transport. But see, most places in Europe have better public transportation, but also most places in Europe are much smaller.
That's true.
So it's both. I mean, look, we definitely have horrible public transportation, but we would never be able to have the kind of system that a country the size of the UK would have, that we would have. Like, it's just not, it's not feasible.
We look back at when universal healthcare took shape, and obviously it's probably Churchill's greatest legacy. But of course, FDR ended up dying. Winston.
It was after Churchill. It was.
I thought it was 1945 or something.
Yeah. So Churchill basically got ousted immediately after the war. Like literally.
He doesn't watch The Crown.
Oh, I don't.
Well, that's your problem. All right. I've been watching The Crown since season 1. Since Churchill was there, so I know all of it.
Yeah, it was Nye Bevan who's the father of the anarchists. But it's interesting. You think we're not suffering. Like the one of the things that really strikes me is another reason that there's so much volatility in both Britain and America is the level of wealth and income inequality.
Oh,
like,
yes.
There is. I'm not going to sit here and argue for like equality of outcome, because that's the
no.
Okay, well then, Josh, that's a great segue, because I'm going to piss Jen off now. Too bad. Is there really any point to the royal family?
Oh my God!
To exist? Because it seems to me that you're just giving money away that doesn't really need to be there.
Those are the world's biggest landlords.
Yeah, I mean, the royal family is a complicated one. Like, I have really mixed feelings on it. Because
me too.
I hate the rest of the royal family, but for some reason I like the Queen. I don't know why.
You all do.
I can't explain it, but I mean, like the royal family brings in like a stupid amount of money, in just in tourism, and like the amount that we pay them compared to the amount of money that they bring in tourism is it's like 20-fold. I think I cannot remember.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So basically, what you're saying is that Westminster Abbey and places like that are no different than people coming to Disney World. It's kind of
Buckingham Palace.
Sure.
All right. So my thing is, like, I don't pretend. If I know that in principle, am opposed to the idea of elitism, blue bloods, monarchy, all of that. Like the fact that certain people are just inherently worthier than others is just something that disgusts me to no end. So in theory, I'm opposed to it and I don't like it at all. However, I was a huge Princess Diana fan, huge. And so to me, anything having to do with like William and Harry and all of that is all like, those are Di's babies. Like I grew like, I can't even. So that to me is something that's just because I like them.
I think Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have done the most tone deaf things that I can possibly imagine. Like, we're literally in a situation where like poverty is skyrocketing. Like in Britain, like food bank use is skyrocketing. Yeah. There's 14 or 15 million people living in poverty in Britain. And Meghan Markle goes on Oprah in the midst of all this and complains that no one taught her about the royal family. She was like, as far as I'm concerned, she can like just go live in your mansion in like the
Oh,
California
yeah.
hills and get out, like just stop making it about you. Like we have so many more monstrous problems to deal with than listening to her whine about not being accepted by the royal family. It's like, oh my goodness, someone wasn't accepted by their in-laws. That has never happened in the history of marriage ever. Like,
No,
like,
I definitely don't see her as a victim by any stretch, and that the timing of everything is definitely not right. But the fact that there's people are saying, you mean that they're racist, is a little bit like, where have you been? like of course they're racist.
I think that's a great segue where from a European perspective, I mean, we know how bad corporate media is in the United States. You guys have your own,
It's interesting that theirs is conservative. Like you say your media is conservative. But I think your conservative is our liberal. So most importantly, what's your conservative?
I mean, like the kind of like right wing, like free market, laissez faire, sort of like heritage foundation style of politics,
like a Reagan Republican, right?
Yeah,
no,
it's
that
really
sounds like a Democrat to me. What he's describing.
No, I'm saying that their version is something that would be like a throwback to the 1980s.
So they don't have conservatives like we have conservatives.
No, we have people. Yeah, well, the problem, of course, is everything that transpired. I always say a lot of it started in Reagan's. I mean, things started obviously when Reagan became president. Labor was crushed. Not just in the United States, but probably globally as well, when he fired the air traffic controllers in 1981, and there was not a single union that stood up to him. And
that's when we lost labor.
Yeah, piecemeal as it went forward, obviously the massive tax cuts, of course, the one in 83 was justified, the one in 86 was not. Then, of course, you remove the fairness doctrine in 87. That's when the whole falling apart of the media really started. And then under Clinton, it went into the stratosphere, like people still are in total denial about. Obviously, between NAFTA and normal trade relations with China, but then ultimately the 96 Telecom Act. I'm curious as to what the European consensus of people that you talk to think when they see our media, and especially the way it's been over the past several years, the sensationalism, the fact that it's rooted in such limited substance, and it's all about divide and conquer. There is very little, if anything, that is used as benefit. And let's be honest, there's a lot of content creators and independent media who basically make their living off of critiquing corporate media. So there's definitely a significant problem to that. And I'm curious as to how you guys see the way we deal with things here in this country.
I mean, I guess like I think it really depends how much you pay attention. Like you mentioned Reagan there. We had this thing where Margaret Thatcher and Rupert Murdoch made this very nice little deal where she would not push like an investigation, or she would not allow an investigation into Rupert Murdoch's takeover of the Times and the Sunday Times, which like pushed his share of the British media beyond what we consider to be acceptable under antitrust laws. And in exchange, he agreed to back her. So since then, Rupert Murdoch's had a ridiculous outsized influence on the British press, and our tabloid media that makes up like 80% of our print media is owned by like a handful of incredibly wealthy press barons that probably don't have the best interests of the people at heart, I get the feeling. But like our view of your media is really dependent on how much people are paying attention, because I personally look at it, but I'm so like I watch a lot of what's going on in America because I see it as like warning signs for what we're going to get a few years later. But British opinion on the American media, I think, is incredibly limited. Like I sometimes see people that I just expect to know better. There's two that come to mind. Andrew Adonis, who's Lord Adonis, who tried to run for the Labour Party as a candidate but didn't get elected, and Peter Stefanovic, who is like a trade unionist, like a leader of both of them I have seen make the comment, and you're gonna laugh so hard at this. They have made the comment, we need a fair, impartial media outlet in the UK like CNN. They have actually said that.
Well, one thing I'll say in Stanovich's defense is that, are you talking about CNN, like CNN in America? Or are you talking about CNN World?
No, CNN America.
No, CNN World is different. It is. You got to call a spade a spade. It's not great, but it's not the propaganda.
They were talking CNN in America.
Yeah, if they're talking CNN in America, I mean, that's scary.
Well, they're just stenographers. That's all they are.
And as you've seen,
it's not reporting.
And as you've seen, across the ocean, the fact that, and again, I don't know how bad I'm assuming nepotism is probably
they have a monarchy.
Well, yeah, of course. I'm saying just in business in general. But the idea that Chris Cuomo would have a primetime media spot if his last name wasn't Cuomo, much like anything else, is a joke. And the idea he's still on TV.
And that's impartial CNN. Yeah. That's very independent CNN.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, because of what has come out about Andrew Cuomo, Chris Cuomo should be out of a job. Like, period. This shouldn't even be a thought. And the fact that they wasted so much time, and on top of the fact that he went out and got that freaking vaccine ahead of everybody, and everyone's like, well, he would have just done it for his family. I'm like, it just goes to show you that they're trying to turn everything into a serfs class. And I hope that there's enough pushback at some point where people start to recognize that. And I do think that there is enough people to combat that. But like I said, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is people don't want to check their egos. They like playing on teams. They like being separated. They like identities. I'm a liberal. I'm a conservative. I'm this and that.
This brings it back to the echo chamber that we were talking about at the very beginning. And that is what plagues us.
Yeah.
That's what plagues us. And I think that it plagues us here locally. It plagues our country. Like, it's every little part of microcosm where you would find people just want to be with people that agree with them in their little safe spaces. And we're getting so more and more broken and disconnected.
You're never going to get anywhere if you think that your goal is to basically talk amongst the same people, because the truth is 99.9% of the time, especially when it comes to the people in charge, like Rupert Murdoch, the only way you would ever get Rupert Murdoch to change his ways is if it affected his bottom line. That is the only way that he would change. And that's the only way anybody else would change. If you think that by telling other people, especially people that are in the working class, that we don't need you, you've already lost.
Yeah.
Like, it's already over. So don't even bother wasting your time. I don't know if there is sort of that consensus that's happening, but I think it's very important that people truly do understand that the UK and the United States share a lot of similarities, but the type of programs that you have, which at least allow people to live in dignity, even if they're suffering, is something that we don't have in the States. And the idea that we can keep going at the bare minimum without a universal healthcare system and without some type of a universal basic income to either make up for what's happened over the course of this pandemic, or to even have a living wage, it's not going to stand. Because at some point, people are just not going to have it anymore. And I'm curious as to your perspective. Is that sort of thing also happening in the UK? Because I do think things are going to come to a head. As like I said, this is one of the last topics we'll talk about. China is really starting to come into focus now, because I think people are really understanding the power that country holds over the rest of the world. And they pay slave wages. They are a communist country. And a lot of the things that we buy here, and I'm sure that they buy in the UK, are made in Indochina. And that's a big problem. And I don't know if people realize how much worse this is going to get. And I noticed something over the last year. How vocal in social media somebody like LeBron James is, and his animosity that he had towards Trump. But whenever the issue of China came up, LeBron never said anything. And I think that says a lot about the mindset of where a lot of people are. Is that a lot of people at the top are willing to play this game as long as it's benefiting them and it's on the side that it's benefiting them. Yeah. How is the China influence in the UK? And is that something that we need to be taking more seriously?
In the UK specifically, it's really hard to tell. It's not as overt as it is in America. It's not like you've got like the Chinese Communist Party standing up and saying that they've like bought off the son of Boris Johnson. or at least claiming to have bought him off, because that would be expensive. We don't know how many children he's got. And that's a real thing. Like, there's estimates that he has like 5 to 7 kids from numerous different women. And he actually, fun fact, left his previous wife, who was recovering or still had cancer at the time, for his new current wife.
Classy.
Oh yeah,
real classy. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want running the country. But the China influence is most like prevalent for me in just the way that we've accepted the lockdowns, and the way that we're kind of fine with this like free market, like let's ship everything offshore, like get everything made somewhere else because it'll be cheaper sort of ideology. Like, those are the two things that China has given us the most influence in. I mean, I think, who was pointing this out to me? I think it was Jeffrey Tucker, but I could be wrong. I can't remember. But they were basically pointing out that Imperial College London and Neil Ferguson, the people that predicted this like monstrously high death toll within months from COVID, are like the one of the biggest like recipients of Chinese funds of any university in the UK. And it made me think, I was like, maybe they're just like enjoying saying what China likes to hear, because they're getting a lot of money from them. And if you like Google Imperial College China or Imperial College London China, you get like one of their pages, and it's like when Xi Jinping came to visit, and there's like loads of cool like photos of him interacting like just like a normal person with all the with all the faculty and the students, and it's beautiful to see them embracing with open arms a murderous dictator who is paying. I think you were probably giving him a little bit too much credit in saying they pay wages. They don't exactly pay people in Xinjiang.
No, they're slaves. I call them, but for Apple, I call them slaves.
Yeah, I mean, like I my friend repeatedly points this out to me, and it's an argument that I buy into, is that you see, if we just stop buying their stuff for like 3 months, the country would probably collapse. Like if we just like put stupid sanctions on them for 3 months, do you like, I just ask myself something. It's like, could we live without China's stuff for 3 months, and that would put their economy under such a strain that the country would start to break?
Like, I think that's why
that was one of the
they own us though financially, not just that. Like, that's the thing. Like, if they really call in their debt to us, our kids are going to be working in Chinese labor camps as well.
Yeah, we
need to be teaching them Mandarin.
Well, it's a very precarious situation. And this is the one signature thing that Trump did that I absolutely 100% supported. When he was elected, he axed the TPP, and that was a thank you to the people who got him elected in the Rust Belt. And so but the war never ended, because we still had normal trade relations with China. We still had NAFTA. He didn't really, I mean, he did a couple of things for farmers, but overall it wasn't an improvement. And we're still, sort of circling the drain here. And then ultimately Trump found himself in a situation where he could rally the most people by basically going full-blown nationalistic, if not outright fascist. And so because of that, there wasn't enough of a consensus amongst the working class to say, yeah, this is the path we want to take. Trump was simply the wrong person to be in charge, because he didn't want to actually do any work. And that's a big problem. But we are going to be faced with a much greater issue now, because I still think the biggest fear I have of the Biden presidency is that they are going to try to bring back the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And if they put that through, if people think it's bad now, they ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, this is going to be as bad as it's ever been, because totally, our kid should be learning Mandarin. That's funny. We are going to get to a point where we're not going to have any choices, and everyone thinks, oh, it's never going to happen. Of course it does. History has shown. How many people?
The last year has been like the biggest debunking of that phrase. Oh, that could never happen. That like the last year is like every single time I say, oh, but that'll never happen. Oh, they couldn't possibly do that. It just, I like 3 months later, I'm like, why did I say it couldn't happen? Like China they've petitioned. I don't know if you've seen this, actually. This is kind of really under the radar. Like a few days ago, I read that China have petitioned the World Health Organization to run the global immunity passport. And it's just like, yes, let's let the country that has the social credit system design our international like travel standards.
Oh yeah.
That seems like a great idea.
Well, that's what I say about like people like Jeff Bezos. Yeah, let's give him control of our water and our air too. You know, like let's just there's no limitations to how we are willing to give up control. I mean,
and we don't really have that many people with the ways and means that actually have any sensibility to the real problems that go on. I mean, you've got Richard Branson and others that, you know, on the surface seem like they're really doing a good job, but the truth is they're not doing what needs to be done structurally. Just like I think, you know, there really aren't that many good, if any, billionaires out there. I happen to be a fan of Mark Cuban, but even though I think he does get it, he just can't say it because either he chooses not to or he thinks that, you know, I think a lot of them fear because so much of their money is tied up in various investments around the world that if they start saying the wrong thing, that's going to get them into trouble. I don't know what the end game is or where we ultimately go from here, but I do think a new age economy is what's ultimately going to get us there. And I do think something like modern monetary theory is one of those ways. But I also think, as we bring this conversation full circle, I do think Brexit was a watershed moment. And I do think the uniting of working people is what is ultimately going to save us. If we're able to be saved at this point, I don't know. But I do think that there's enough people that are aware. It's now just a question of, can we bring them together? And I think by having conversations like this, it's how we're going to get closer to where we need to be. And with that said, if you have any final words, Josh, I know you're probably itching for the bed, but, you know, definitely share one more time about your book, where they can find it. And, you know, we really appreciate you coming on this evening.
Yeah, no problem. So my book is Brexit, the Establishment Civil War. Yeah, there's a great little graphic you've made up.
Yeah, see, that's why I put
let me tell you, she is a very talented artist, and I'm not kissing her butt. I'm telling you, she really knows what she's doing. She's good. Very good.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, so
I wanted to put up the book.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. But if you don't want to give Jeff Bezos any more money and make sure, you know, if you don't want him to have that like 27th mansion, you can go to bookshop.org. They're like this company that they're trying to be the Amazon for indie bookstores.
And just because you decide bookshop.org?
Bookshop.org. And if you're in the UK,
and that's where everybody should be going.
Yeah, so you can get my book there, and you can check out my website, thegist.co.uk, that I have links to all my podcast and everything that I do. If people want to check it out, and you can follow me on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook anymore because I ditched that because you know, like, screw Mark Zuckerberg.
Thank you.
Of all of it, let me tell you something. And one thing I will say, and like I said, there's not a lot of good billionaires out there. I think Jack Dorsey at least has a conscience. Mark Zuckerberg does not have a soul, much less a conscience.
I think he's like Data from Star
Trek: The Next Generation. Oh yeah,
he's like
he's a robot.
Android.
He doesn't function. He doesn't have emotion. Like, it doesn't exist in his makeup. And and never forget that Zuckerberg basically stole the idea from the Winklevoss brothers. So it's,
oh my God,
you know,
all right, we don't need to talk about the Winklevoss.
No.
Yeah, they're super crypto crazy these days.
So what else, and tell people what else you work on, because you also have other things going on besides the book.
Yeah, I mean, so I do my podcast, which is really fun. I like to talk to people from every possible like opinion that I can find. It's I have literally talked from everyone from complete Marxists to people who were at the Capitol on January 6th.
To me,
and everything in between. And to you as well. I don't. Yeah, exactly. Go check out my episode with Jen. That was a lot of fun.
And wait, remind me, it's the Gist, right?
The Gist, J-I-S-T.
Okay, Gist.
Yeah, there was a play on words in my name, Josh.
Yeah, the Gist, and it's available on all the same places that we are.
The Gist is the what is that?
The Gist.
That's the website.
That's
the
Gist. Show.
Oh,
yeah.
So
the Gist is the website, jist.co.uk.
Okay.
And everything is there. And I'm also on YouTube and Twitter.
The Jist.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, check it out. That's how we met. And I remember when we talked that time when I came on your show, like I could have just kept talking. I said to him, like, but I know, like, and I could talk to you, like, you're very easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And I do think that, you know, the more we spread the word, the more we build this coalition. Because like I said, we're not running a YouTube channel for money.
No.
If we make money, that's great. And we'll use it to build GenCore. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's
so. And for those of you who do want to become a Patreon, just so you know, it's not going into our pockets so we can live off this.
All right,
I have a living, she's a lawyer, you know.
Yeah,
we're doing this because we actually believe in the cause and we want to help.
And that's you too, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do. And so guys, definitely go to The Jist. That is where you can follow Josh. Definitely go to, I don't want to say it wrong. I don't want to make a mistake.
Bookshop.org.
Go to bookshop.org
and buy
Brexit, The Establishment Civil War. I'm sure it's a fantastic read. We really appreciate you coming on, and we hope to see you again soon.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me, guys.
Josh.
Cheers, my friend.
Bye.
No Bye.
Well, he was great. And it's always great to have that conversation from the perspective of somebody who is in another country, who can see things from a perspective that we can't see it from.
I find it's really interesting. So we have, obviously there are so many similarities. Like I see so many similarities in the nonsense they're dealing with and in what we're dealing with. But yet it still seems to me that they're most like they don't have people like we have conservatives in this country, because the people that he describes as conservatives are our Democrats. They're the big business, their privatization, they're all that stuff. What are you trying to do?
Find the,
why can't you? All you have to do is go here, go there.
Jen's really good, and I'm really not.
And then, oh wait, you got rid of it.
I did?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I think
on.
that. But you know, again, the conversation came back that, you know, there really is a very big libertarian movement growing.
So is that what you wanted to do? Did you want to go to news and amusement?
But what I thought was very interesting was how he brought up the fact that, you know, after I had alluded to the fact that there is nobody, no matter how libertarian you are, they're not giving up their health care. They know that that is one component. And remember, whether it is the NHS or it's you know, one of the single payer systems that exists in, let's say, France or Spain or Germany, you know, you're getting what you're getting if for no other reason, because it's a basic necessity that people need in order to live. Healthcare is that one exception. Now, of course, there are others that I think should be as well, but that is one that I don't see how anyone argues that point. I don't see how anyone feels that you shouldn't have healthcare as a basic human right, which is why, like I said, I think that progressives and libertarians have a lot more in common than they're willing to admit. Then I think we could get a lot done if we focus on the primary issues that we are most concerned with that can make a difference.
So do you want to do news and amuse?
So we are going to do news and amuse. We do have plans. So we obviously have to get some things out of the way, but very important topics that I think must be addressed. And again, as it relates to what we were just talking about with China, Asian hate is a very real thing that has been going on for a very long time. It is only reaching the surface now because obviously it is without question, this virus came from China. Was it a chemical weapon? Was it a weapon of war? Whatever you want to call it. Listen, I believe it was created in a laboratory. I don't know why it was done.
No, all sorts of viruses are created in laboratories. There's nothing remotely nefarious about that. We have viruses created in our laboratories. I think this was created in a laboratory. I don't think it was done intentionally to like get out. I think that they work on viruses. That's how things are created. That's how they come up with things like vaccines. So there's all sorts of things that happen, but I don't think it was intentional.
But here's where the problem, this is where the rubber meets the road. And this is one of the most important topics we're talking about here. There are 14 countries, including the WHO, the World Health Organization, that is calling upon the People's Republic of China to release the information, the data as to how this virus originated and how it got out. And China is refusing to release that data.
I don't think we'll ever see it. And you know,
I don't either.
But here's the thing that is concerning is just that people will then jump to whatever conclusions, and they have been. Like, was it from a bat? You know, I mean, there's so many, it's people just are.
So some person basically allude to the fact I forgot the gentleman. I think he worked under Obama or Trump. I can't remember which guy, but he was basically alluding to the fact that this is not a virus that's being transferred from a bat to a human. It's not happening. So, however, which
I
way,
never believed that.
No, but again, however which way it did, I'm simply saying that there are two countries that run this world: the United States and China, and you could throw in Russia if you want.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, when you realize that wars are basically fought as proxies amongst the people who run the show. If China and the United States went to war, it's the end of the world. So that's why this is such a precarious issue. And they don't want to let people know that it's very possible that this could have been essentially an act of war. Now, I'm not alluding to that's what it was. But when everybody screams at the top of their lungs that this is the Russians, they did this, they did no. You see, when it really is something of substance, you're never going to hear about it on corporate news. Why? Because the things that actually affect our lives are not things you're going to hear about. That's how it works. That's the beauty of corporate media.
So I just realized there's two stories up there
that correct.
Are dealing
and
with
this is where it becomes an even worse set of circumstances because of everything that's going on now and with the heightened sense of what has been going on with the World Health Organization demanding China release that information. This Asian hate is taking on a whole new level of significance. And while we've heard the stories about what's been going on in Oakland and various parts of the country, there is nothing that I saw that was worse than what transpired the other day when this man, Brandon Elliott, decided to beat an elderly Asian woman. I don't remember I don't think it was a department store. I can't remember exactly where it was. If anybody in the conversation,
there was video cameras, so it was someplace that had surveillance cameras. It was some retail shop.
This man literally walked up to a old Asian woman on the street and kicked her square in the face and into the ground and proceeded to beat her. And while people witnessed this happening, they not only didn't help, they decided to close the door and watch it happen. So, a couple of things here.
That I didn't know. Oh, this is not the kind of, I normally don't see this kind of news.
This is really weird too, because New York I'm from New Jersey and, I've
That's
lived
horrible.
part of my life. Shut up. Oh, I thought you were talking about me living in New Jersey.
No.
But what's interesting is what do you call it when a person they're like a witness to a crime and they don't do anything about it?
A bystander?
Yeah. How come we need the Seinfeld bystander law to be brought out for these people? Because they really could have done something. And apparently the person who closed the door and didn't do anything was a security guard. So
that makes sense.
So that's even better. That makes the story even juicier. So as it turns out, and of course, everyone, there's a lot of people who don't really, in the corporate media, want to touch the story. Why? Because it was an old Asian woman and a black man. Now, the most difficult part of this story is the fact that this man was out on parole for murdering his mother. Isn't that something? Murdered his mother. So it stands to reason that he might be a danger to society, and Lord knows, in accordance to his parole, essentially, if he committed any violent act again, he's going to prison for the rest of his life.
Well, yes.
So he's never going to get out. He's going to jail for the rest of his life. That is cut and dry. But the fact that something like this even happened is amazing.
I didn't realize that there was a whole bystander situation.
Not one, not two, not three. Like at least a half dozen people saw this and did nothing.
You mean on the scene?
Right there, on the scene, did nothing.
That's just...
This is an old lady, and this is a burly man.
I know, that's crazy.
He easily could have killed this woman. Imagine if he actually had any real skill and gave her a swift kick right to her chin.
And not that this matters in any way, but was this just random?
Yeah, totally random.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it, but no, there's no justification. I'm just curious if that's just random.
And they have the audio feedback of him telling her, "Get the hell out of our country." It's bad. It's bad.
Oh my
God.
God.
And this is what happens when you punch down or you punch sideways. You're not punching up. And that is why
we could go on a high note for New York, though.
We can't go on a high. We can go
high note.
And two things. Because the truth of the matter is, I really do think that New York is ready for a major change. And I do think Andrew Yang is going to be the next mayor of New York City.
That'll be cool.
And in light of this anti-Asian hate and the fact that it's happened in New York City and the fact that they can elect the first Asian American to lead that city,
Yes.
I am not into identity politics in any way, but this would be the biggest FU to the establishment that you could possibly have. And it would be glorious.
Yeah, it would. But I'm talking about even better news for New York.
So now, as we transition from Andrew, we're going to transition to, we have good Andrew and we have shit Andrew. Excuse me, we're demonetized. What can I say?
What Andrew? What are you talking
Andrew Cuomo.
Oh.
So Andrew Cuomo, who is about to get his butt kicked out of office, now has a bill sitting on his desk to legalize marijuana.
It can happen.
Is this guy seriously going to give the biggest FU of all time and not sign this bill?
I don't know,
law?
but so where, I mean, obviously the fact that it will expunge prior convictions is like the biggest.
It's glorious.
Yeah.
But I really think this backs Cuomo into a corner. It's going to be very interesting to see because he has, like, everyone is
he's going to have to
now.
do it, though. He's going to have to do it.
Well,
the majority of the country wants it. I can't. The numbers in New York have to be staggering. I mean, 3/4 of the country supports legalization. Like,
yes.
It's a vast majority of people across the political spectrum. So New York tends to be on the left of that spectrum. So I would imagine it would be even more people in New York.
Yeah, the fact that you've got it through the state Senate and now it's sitting on the desk of what is essentially a lame duck governor, it's going to be very interesting to see if he really has the gall to veto this bill. And of course, every big pharma, big alcohol, anyone who is within the corporate establishment that stands to lose money by legalization of cannabis, they are going to be begging him to not sign it into law.
But I do think that he has an opportunity that is very massive here because I don't think career-wise, he's not going anywhere else.
No.
So all those connections and all of that stuff, it's not like he needs to serve that. And the fact that he doesn't get reelected, I mean, he has an opportunity to actually go out being somewhat popular amongst regular people.
Yeah.
And this would help with that, I think. I mean,
and again, the fact that this was passed already at the beginning of the week, you know how easily he could sign this into law. And the fact that he's waiting on it is, again, I don't know what his intentions are, what he thinks he's going to get away with. But everyone is very well aware. Yes.
All right, let's get out of New York.
Yes.
Let's go to Georgia.
So let's go to Georgia. And this gets back to
Georgia.
And this is
the voting
great.
thing.
And this is a great transition because, again, we're talking about the aspects of, exercising your power, political power, and seizing the opportunity when it's there. The fact that, and again, we love Ron Kim, the state senator from New York, the person who basically in his own party blew the whistle on the governor all the way back last April. And they
about
wanted
the
to
nursing homes.
And they wanted to censor him. And he, of course, and he only mentioned it recently. He talked about the fact that he was getting threatening phone calls from Cuomo. I guarantee you it started at the very beginning. Basically told him to shut up. You're going to pay for this, blah, 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 blah. And so now they're in a very powerful position to get a major piece of legislation across. And so what's happening is down in Georgia, anyone who has been paying attention to the story about the we'll just call it voter suppression bill, because that's what it is.
It's a voter suppression bill.
And now the Florida GOP is trying to do a mirror bill and get that through Tallahassee and have the same stuff done down here,
yes.
Which doesn't surprise me in the least. But the only way it's going to stop is if businesses that have actual power say, we're losing too much money, we've got to stop this. So there are people in the business community and, of course, the Black community of business that are saying this is wrong and this should not stand. And that is how you can make change. But there is one group that actually is not spoken out in support of removing this voter suppression bill. And you want to know who that is? Hollywood. You know those people who tell you all the time that they are as woke can get?
Aren't these the same people that were like all go Stacey Abrams and all out about getting voter registration
Black
in
Lives
Georgia?
Matter.
Well, Black lives do matter. That's not the same thing.
but I'm talking about what they say.
Oh, they're very concerned with, but yet they don't care if Black people can vote.
And why don't they care?
Well, doesn't
Because
affect
the
them.
state of Georgia, no, that's not why. The reason why is because the state of Georgia gives Hollywood massive tax breaks to film in their state.
Oh, I did know that.
That's why. And one of the reasons they do film in Georgia so much is because we don't offer that here in the state of Florida anymore. We should, because it would be great for the economy. But as you know, we have these unbelievably conservative Looney Tune representatives who think because Hollywood is liberal that we can't have that in our state. So, basically screw yourself for the sake of, getting the liberals, I guess. But at the end of the day, if you can't see that this is I will say this again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, and maybe I am blue in the face already.
Are.
This is a class war. Nothing more, nothing less. Anything that you see that doesn't involve economics is done to distract you.
But let's give kudos and props to the Black corporate business leaders that actually have taken a stand about this and spoke out against this legislation.
Yep.
That's, good. That's what we need. We need more people in corporate positions of power that are standing up to this.
And there is no greater
position of power
that you could possibly be in the United States than that of Jeff Bezos. He is the most powerful man on the planet, and he will get anybody to do what he wants, when he wants, and how he wants. And so that, of course, brings us to the last segment of this wonderful podcast tonight, our bootlicker of the week. And who the hell else?
Bootlicker of the week. Wait. How do you? Oh, you've got Lulu.
Who else could it possibly have been?
Okay, so here we go.
Who could it have been but Jay Carney? Yes, Jay Carney, who decided that he was going to come out and look. Well, Lulu doesn't lick boots.
No, she likes people. She's a people licker.
Because she's such a sweet girl.
This guy, there's the tweet. So something about, I saw him, he reacted to both Bernie and Warren.
He made a very big mistake today. He made a very, very big mistake. And I'll tell you why he made that mistake.
But wait, I can't read that. And I want to read, what's the quote? What did he say? What did Mr. Carney say?
Basically, what I said was that...
Not you, him.
No, I'm telling you what happened.
Okay.
I wanted everybody to understand that I was basically calling out Amazon for their terrible business practices. They do not pay a living wage.
No.
The workers are overworked. And of course, they're peeing and crapping in bottles and bags and all that terrible stuff. And then this not such a good person, Jay Carney, who worked for the Obama administration as their press secretary. As we know, the press secretaries, they just, we know what they do. They don't exactly do things that are good for the people. They do everything to protect power.
They're bootlickers.
And so, you can say that. I'm not saying that. But anyway, this Jay Carney is a really, really not so good person. And so he is a spokesperson for Amazon and wanted to try to make me look bad. And of course, he ended up looking really, really bad.
Yeah. So what did what did he say to you?
He was basically telling me that Amazon takes care of their workers, they pay them fairly, and these Amazon workers are very, very happy with their jobs.
Oh, do you think that this, is anyway them trying to suppress the unionization efforts and really keep that down?
Why would they want to do something like that? I mean, don't they think that all workers are entitled to a living wage, some decent health care, and a good living, just so that they don't have to scrape by, be on welfare, and be accused of being non-productive members of society? No, they would never do something like that.
Hey, where are we with the Bessemer vote?
The vote is being counted, but it hasn't been determined just yet. It does take a little bit of time.
I know. I'm a little bit skeptical.
As well.
Are you?
They're going to start throwing out ballots, right? Is that what you're saying?
I question anything wherein Jeff Bezos is in charge.
Well, this guy, Jay Carney, ended up getting his comeuppance. And not only that, but a really, really mensch of a person, Ken Klippenstein, a great writer for The Intercept. He put out a wonderful article basically detailing the Amazon workers are actually peeing and crapping in bottles and bags. And they basically stuck it to this Jay Carney and made him look really, really bad.
I made him look really bad, too.
Oh, you sure did. I mean, that is a really, really great job. Really incredible. He seems to really enjoy those boots. I know. Those look like Timberland boots. I like those Timberlands. I mean, I live in Vermont, so of course, we have to.
You have to wear those kinds of snow boots. I actually think they look kind of like Sorels.
Well, Jen.
I used to live in the cold place.
Listen, I don't know who has been listening to this show, but I have to tell you, I am really, really not a fan of this woman. She is not a good person. She has done really, really terrible things. And listen, I'm sorry.
Declan, is that you?
My hands were tied. My hands were tied. But I was really hoping you would win that race. Maybe next time. You never know what might happen. I can't make any promises.
You don't like her? She's not somebody you like?
Listen. They always say if you don't have anything nice to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. I do not have anything nice to say about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, so I'm not going to say.
And is it nemesis or nemesi? I'm just joking.
Whatever she is, this is.
She is definitely a nemesis.
She is. I do not consider her a friend. She is not a friend.
Because you certainly don't endorse against her, so you know.
Well, but I would never endorse her.
That's true. Okay, I mean that's fair enough.
That's got to count for something.
I suppose.
Right? That's got to count.
I suppose.
But this guy, Jay Carney, really, really terrible guy, and he does not represent workers. We represent workers, and we are going to form that union. And if we don't form that union, we're going to form it somewhere else. It's going to happen. There's going to be a labor uprising here in the United States.
We're going to tell Jay Carney to stick it.
You could say what you want to say.
I can say that. He can stick it. Look at him. He looks like a
Jay Carney's got a really, really, really long tongue. Are you sure that that's really his mouth?
It's his tongue.
Are you sure?
I am.
Well, okay.
Maybe that's why Jeff Bezos likes him.
Well, Jeff Bezos, I am not a fan. I do not like that guy.
Maybe he licks his bald head.
You're giving me the crumbles now. I don't really like thinking about this. It's a very, very, very bad thought. But the reality is, we are doing everything we can in our power to build labor in this country.
Yes, we are.
And that Jay Carney really made me upset.
Yeah.
Really made me upset.
Yeah.
And he does not care about workers. He only cares about himself and making lots and lots of money working in Washington, D.C. in the swamp. And he is a swamp creature. I can say that, right? That doesn't mean I agree with Trump. The only thing I agree with Trump on is trade, and he should not be censored. Jen, I think you should run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's wonderful to see you all. I hope you had a wonderful time tonight.
Oh, Debbie. You know,
respond.
She never responded to us when we were running. Like, she never reached out like this. It's just so shocking.
Yeah, but you have a very, very popular show. I mean, you get all different kinds of known people on the show. It's really, really great.
I know. Who do we have? Do you know who we have coming up?
Producer John.
Producer John.
Who you have coming up?
actually think we're still not sure about Monday, but we do have something very cool
coming up
next
on Thursday. Thursday is a very big night. I heard that I'm going to be part of the story, which is always great to hear. A couple of very big supporters of ours. That's always nice to hear.
Savage Joy,
great lady.
And it's Patrick Cody, right? Is it Cote?
He goes by another name.
Pat the Burner. Pat the Burner. Yeah,
he's a very big supporter of not me,
hence
us.
the burner.
That's the burner. Yes. I mean,
so they're coming on the show next week.
Movement. We have started a political movement here in this country, and we are going to continue to build it up. And so, why are you bringing on Savage Joy and Pat the Burner? Why are they coming on? They
are coming on to promote their new book, The Yas Queen Chronicles. And before we go, I do have to shout out our new Patreons, but I think I got lost. John, did you put them in? Did you create a new banner and I just missed it?
I got a text. And with that, Jen is going to let you know.
No, I didn't get a text.
No, you're going to talk about who's supporting the
text?
show.
Yes, I did. I got a text. Okay. All right. So I did get a text. I'm sorry. My bad, everybody. We have new patrons. We have Chuck Simon.
Thank you.
Yes. Kevin Weber.
Thank you, Kevin.
And then we have Crowded Crow. And Zach Will.
Zach. We really appreciate
you guys will get your whatever the rewards are for whatever levels. Everybody will be getting their goodies.
Jen, show them those lovely new stickers.
Well, you're wearing the shirt.
Oh, what are those?
Oh, I do have new stickers. Well, these are going to be giveaway things. These are little givvies, yeah, for sure. So we have. Does it focus? I don't know.
I think I can see it. That looks like your little.
That's Lulu, who has become our mascot. So we have little generational change Lulu stickers. And then I have new stickers for our new segment that we started on Monday,
Right.
which is sort of like Bootlicker of the Week, but a Florida special.
Oh,
And
Florida.
this is called Florida Bites
Oh, that's a big alligator.
and is full of reptiles.
I would not go anywhere near that
And
dog.
that is our new segment. So yeah, we have little giveaways for that, but we also have for our $10 patrons, we have our generational change
Yeah,
jerseys.
don't you like the t-shirt? It's a very good t-shirt. It's very
And
comfortable.
we have our hemp bracelets for our $5 patrons. And yeah, that's what we have going on. So there you go. Oh no, you don't be sorry for Caps, John. If you didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have seen it. So thank you for reminding me. But I just wasn't sure if you had done like a Patreon banner. But anyway, guys, please go to Patreon, subscribe if you can. We have $1 a month option, but that's what we're really, it's more about spreading than it is about earning. But we just really want to, the hand motion.
What you
Yeah.
need to understand is that
So-
I can always do the hand motions at any time. Anytime.
Yeah,
Like
but
a
and
kind of-
so and also we cannot count on YouTube and Google
No.
as far as any sort of income. And just so people do know, all of the money, like for Generational Change, is for Gen Core, which is our volunteer organization.
It's a
So
wonderful organization.
yeah, so I use the money for example, on Tuesday we're having a local trash pick cleanup, a beach cleanup, and Taco Tuesday.
Yes.
And so like money from Gen Core will buy the people tacos who come to clean up the beach. So just different things. I'm putting together bags to be delivering homeless bags for people, like survival kits and stuff like that. That's going to come out of that. So all the money that goes to that right now is going to Gen Core. Now that could change in the future. I mean, we could get bigger and whatever, but ultimately right now we're just about serving.
Well, as you know, I said the other day that censorship is a really bad thing. They unfortunately are censoring your show.
I know.
And I don't think that's a good thing.
So
I think it's a bad
so people, if you can subscribe on Patreon, that's great. And please share on YouTube, because the more people that subscribe, I mean, it's hard. It's challenging, but we're plugging along.
We really appreciate you guys. We think you're wonderful. Thank you for checking out the show.
Notice how when Trump was here, I wasn't sitting with him.
Well, I'm a much more...
And
Yeah,
I've
decent
heard
person.
that you're not that warm and fuzzy, to be honest. with
Well, I'm
you.
not. I'm kind of an old grump, but what are you going to do?
I've heard that.
I'm going to be fighting until I'm dead, so it's just the way it is.
All right, we got to go. Stabler's coming back.
We'll see you guys. Yeah, remember, go check out that SVU show.
Oh my
It's really,
God,
really good.
Stabler's coming back. I'm so excited.
Good night, all.
Bye, y'all. Peace out.